Commenting the Nigerian story.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us on Trust TV's Daybreak. Right now, it's time for us to take a look at the front pages of the newspapers to find out what's making the news this morning. We start with Daily Trust, and the major headline on the front page reads, 2023 polls, FG accuses Obi Detti of treason. And we have riders here that says accusations malicious, fictitious, says LP presidential candidate. CSO caution government, politicians against provocative utterances. Interim government beyond the alert, reps tell security agencies. Anti-Tinubu protests staged at White House, and Nigeria not under any threat, says defense chief. Now, details of that story can be found on page 5 of the Daily Trust. Moving towards the bottom of the front page there, Trump charged with falsifying business records. And the pictorial there on the front page has the former U.S. president arriving ahead of his arraignment at Manhattan Federal Court in New York. At the very bottom of the front page there, reps call for increased security at airports, and that's on page 4. Buhari removes Naseni boss, that is on page 7. And talking about security now, kidnappers abduct 8 students in Kaduna. Details of that can be found on page 6. Moving towards the top of the front page, inflation erodes minimum wage by 41% in 3 years. That's according to a report, and the details of that are on page 35. Pest attack, Kano tomato farmers lose over 1.5 billion naira. That story can be found on page 34. And finally, on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, Obi Oyedepo's leaked audio. We don't track phone conversations. That is according to the NCC. Details of that can be found on page 35 of the Daily Trust. Now, those are the major stories on the front page of the paper this morning.
Now, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. It has a lead story that says, from the federal government, Obi Detti's actions treasonable. And we have a rider that says, polls integrity intact. Shoyinka decries Detti's TV chat. Obi denies it all. And beneath that, we have BDC's aid treasury looting. BDC's aid treasury looting, treasury looting, terrorism, says agency. We also have Trump pleads not guilty to 34 felony counts. And just above the masthead, we have wreck in governorship election bribe mess. Still on the Nation, government halts 10% hike in excise duty on non-alcoholic drinks. We also have Nego's tough on discos over meters. These are the major stories on the Nation newspaper for today.
All right. Next, we'll take a look at the Punch newspaper, and keeping what we have seen so far, the major story on the front page is post-election threats. Obi Detti risk treason charges, FG warns. And riders here that said LP presidential candidate, deputy calling for insurrection. Treasonable, says minister. Obi should face the law, says APC. FG's allegation reckless, says Obi and PDP. Reps condemn calls for interim government, ask DSS to arrest enemies of democracy. Moving towards the bottom of the page there, protest as Trump pleads not guilty to criminal charges. And of course, the pictorial there is about the current case against the former U.S. president. Ramadan, avoid offensive sermons, Esunupe tells clerics. Is another story on the front page of the Punch newspaper. And Whitney, coroner okays Cressland's independent autopsy. Afenifere crisis deepens. Youth ask Adebanjo to step down. Is another story on the front page of the Punch newspaper. And moving towards the top of the front page, above the masthead, foreign investors shun Kano, Rivers, Ogun, 24 states. And Naira crisis, cash circulation low, NLC tells CBN. And finally, on the front page of the Punch newspaper this morning, Nigeria more divided than Civil War era. That is according to Sanusi, and details of that can be found on page 20. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, now let's move over to the Leadership newspaper. It has a lead story that says, 54 days to inauguration. Tinubu headhunts best brains, competence for appointment. And for the rider, we have Sanusi Gbajabiamila Alake El-Rufai Akume shortlisted. Fayemi Fashola Adeyeye may be considered. We also have APC governors meet today as race for 10th NAS leadership intensifies. Beneath that, federal government opens second Niger Bridge May 15, completes local Oweto Bridge. We also have gunmen abduct 8 students, village head's wife, son in Kaduna, Kano. Just above the lead story, we have Obi Deti Ahmed kick over federal government's treason allegation. And still on the leadership, relief as federal government halts planned raise in excise duty on beverages. And just above the masthead, Trump arraigned for 34 criminal charges, pleads not guilty. We also have bandits make fresh 100 million naira demand in Niger. These are the major stories on the leadership newspaper for today.
Well, next we'll take a look at the Guardian newspaper, and the major story is in keeping what we've seen so far. FG Obi trade accusations on treason charge, and details of that are on page 6. It comes with Rider's Head. It says Mohammed Obi filing insurrection, and Obi demarketing me not good for Nigeria. Don't misinform international community. LP cautions Mohammed, and reps condemn interim government plot. Task security agencies on vigilance. And still on the front page of The Guardian, test for Nigeria's Themis as Trump faces trial. That is on page 6. And Nigeria's capital inflow buckles under rising risks. Monetary tightening. NATO's border with Russia doubles as Finland joins. And these are the major stories on the front page of The Guardian newspaper this morning. And with that, we wrap up reeling out the headlines from the front pages of the newspapers this morning, and we'll go into the analysis of those particular headlines. And of course, to help us with that in the studio, we have a former director news agency of Nigeria, talking about Ben Shemang, retired but not tired. Yes, it's always here to give us the analysis of the headlines. Thank you very much for coming, and good morning.
Thank you, but a small correction.
Okay.
With the Voice of Nigeria.
Oh, Voice of Nigeria,
yeah,
sorry.
You said news agency,
yes, it's actually
so
the
we
Voice
have
of
advertised none. They should pay. They should pay.
Yes, I think we should send them. We'll send them an invoice. So welcome to the program this morning.
Wow, thank you.
All right, so let's delve into the analysis now. Most of the papers are carrying the headline concerning the current back and forth going between the federal government and, of course, the presidential candidates of the Labour Party, and of course his vice presidential candidate as well, concerning treasonable or insightful comments that have been making the rounds on the media. What's your take on this back and forth?
I think that the two sides are increasing the heat on the political space in Nigeria. Yes, if Obi makes a comment that that is unparliamentary, that hinges on the security, well-being of this country, I think to the federal government, with some missiles being sent to him, the two sides do have those you call followers. How do we calm down frayed nerves? Very, very key at this point in time. I was listening to the digital imam on Armed Forces Radio. His own tafsir, he actually based it on, look, we should not profile some religion, we should not profile some individuals or regions, we should not heat up the political barometer. Elections have come, and if there are issues to be settled, and people have gone to court, explore that, so that the issue of meeting in streets should not actually be the practice in Nigeria, because we are seeing what is happening in Kenya. It's not too well, and the suffering that we are seeing in the country, by the time some political juggernauts, those who feel they must have everything when they want, at all means, using any method, I think it shouldn't just be. So it's not too well that missiles are being sent here and there. And if we have a gullible followership, by the time people fight in the street because of differences, political, religion, they go and live as a unified group in a camp where people visit them and give them peanuts and say this will not happen again. And it has been a continuing decimal in this country. I think it is time that even what you call maybe post-political summit, post-election summit. We've always been hearing of post-election violence. Can we begin to talk of post-election summit involving all stakeholders, political, religion, all political parties, civil society organizations? Can we come together and chart a new way forward so that those who have been elected will begin to give good governance, rather than you occupy a space, you've been sworn in, and the next thing is always looking back and carrying campaigns, attacking those who are your opponents, wasting the entire time.
But the thing is, Mr. Sherman, the thing is this: after the elections, those who were aggrieved, those who were not comfortable with the results, they approached the court. So a lot of persons are wondering why there's still this forth and back. I mean, the matter is in court, and it was expected that everybody would just wait and allow the courts to decide. Absolutely,
you're going to court implies you have elected, you have voted, that you believe in the judiciary. And that's why you went in the first place. And of course, it is a laid-down procedure in Nigeria. It's a democratic culture. It's a norm, it's a practice that should happen. But why people will go lay their complaints and still be talking in the streets at the point when they say you've taken this case to court, you wait, rather than you continue addressing the press, you continue to address communities, you continue to address worshippers, you continue to address, to understand with your situation. It is common with all the political parties, especially where one feels he's been shortchanged, or like they said, want to reclaim that stolen mandate. It cuts across. So if you have selected or elected to go to the court, then wait for the court to deliver judgment. All that you need to do is prove that yes, this is yours and it was wrongly given or stolen from you. And that is it. But a situation where we see politics almost like real enemies fighting, it shouldn't just be. Let's believe in Waziri Ibrahim, the Borno man, GNPP of those great Nigerian People's Party, who would always say politics without bitterness. How will you fight like this? Go and sit down in a mosque before an imam and listen to khutbah. How will you fight this way? Go to church, take Holy Communion together. When they say let's give each other as a sign of peace, that's the time you throw your face to the other side because you are seated by someone you claim to be your political enemy. It shouldn't just be. Politics should be seen just like football. If you've won, move on. Tomorrow is another.
In line with that also, we're also seeing pockets of protests abroad. And a lot of persons are wondering why Nigerians are taking their dirty linens outside. Some of them are calling on the U.S. government to come and protect Nigeria's democracy. And the question is, Nigeria is a sovereign nation, right? So why are we having these issues taken outside the country? These people don't come here to protest when they have their problems.
It's really not new. During the military era, we had many of these things abroad.
But the difference is that we're in a democracy.
We are in a democracy, and that's the beauty of democracy. You can even go into the sea and start crying to the fishes that, look, the farmers are not catching you very well. But talking seriously, if you look at even these presidential candidates, were they not going to London, where each of them would try to show that they are more capable? Chatham House, you make the economy of England so buoyant, you charter flights, you are in their hotels, you pay all sorts of bills there. I mean, if we have the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, we have that equivalence. Why are they not going there? Don't we have International Institute of International Affairs in VI Lagos? Why are they not going there? If you want to do a debate there, go there. But these people invite you and you think you have the sound credentials. And that's why also some people who feel, okay, you are there to show your credentials, will also go to the environment to puncture those credentials. And that's what we are seeing today. But then, like I said, it's the beauty of democracy. But I think, so what will America do? To come and say, okay, don't swear in Asiwaju, or Buhari leave the power now, or what is it? Well, they have the right to do whatever they are doing, but then I think that at the point, some guys will just be looking at, see this Nigerians, see these Africans, okay? They're just doing what the best they know, and that is it, just to make noise and disappear. And thereafter what? You know, so if we are, we know what we are doing, let's please see what we can do to build a very strong nation. But again, I don't know, virtually everybody, contestant will be saying they were shortchanged. They stole my mandate.
So let me get your final thoughts on this matter before we move on to other issues. I mean, you did accuse both parties of not handling this situation correctly. I mean, both the aggrieved parties and, of course, the federal government itself. The federal government is saying that they cannot allow everything to descend into chaos. They have to wade in. And the other party are actually accusing the federal government of trying to persecute and stifle them. What do you think the federal government could have done differently in this situation?
Well, you see, the federal government, yes, you can react, but sometimes the choice of words will not suit, or they are not a good balm to suit a kind of an injury. Yes, opposition is feeling injured, but you have the higher stake. You have already won. So there's a way you also calm down frayed nerves.
But could they be afraid of not appearing to be weak? I mean, like if these ones are coming with fighting words, they believe they should come with fighting words.
And that's also why the military is saying, look, we are available, we are ready, and of course, Nigerians have no fear. We are here to defend democracy, you know. So why must it always be taking the military to assure us of our safety, to assure us that democracy is here to stay? I think that sometimes wars, I tell you, they start from words of mouth. And from words of mouth to someone flinging a hand. From flinging a hand, you now get to arm yourself. You arm yourself with what? A stick. The next thing is the small and light weapon. And of course, heavy weapon. You bring in the police. And when it is they are incapable, you bring in the military.
You know, Mr.
The military that is supposed to be taking care of our territorial integrity, you deploy them to checkpoints. We have reduced that prestige. Those days when you see a military man, Air Force, Navy, policeman, look, you just feel you belong to this profession. But you see, internal crisis or crises, since they are becoming too many, are a kind of bringing that aura, that prestige that circulates around the military. You know, internal security work simply belongs to SSS and the conventional police. The SSS will not be so discernible, so palpable. You can see them here and there, omnibus, you know, but they do whatever they can do, but the physical police will be here and there, and they are divided, all sorts of squadron, mobile police force, the amphibious police force. You see them all over. The conventional, the CID, they all are over the place. And that is why, see, I think now that we have Solomon Arase as the chairman of the Police Service Commission, then we have the IG. When the presidency is saying every year let's have 10,000 recruits, 10,000, they are busy fighting themselves and going to
All right, Mr. Shemat, let's come back to this issue. I'm just wondering, in the over 20 years of the return of Nigeria's democracy, we haven't had this kind of situation where in less than 60 days to swearing in, we're having all of this back and forth. We're having the military trying to assure Nigerians that there's no problem, there will be a swearing in and all of that. We've not had this kind of situation. Why is this so this time?
Yeah, you see, when you are transiting,
we have been transiting since 1999.
Yes, let me tell you the way my thinking of this transition. Look at the transition between Obasanjo, Obasanjo. Then you look at when he was transiting to Yaradua, this thing went down. You didn't see much of this post-election violence. But when it became a kind of transiting from a political party to another, like 2015. Remember the post-election violence, Jonathan versus Buhari.
In 2015,
sorry, 2007.
2011.
2011, sorry. There was post-election violence when Goodluck Jonathan succeeded Yaradua.
You see, Mr.
But
Shema,
just
there
a
was
moment.
post-election
But
violence, but there was no
just
talk
a moment.
of ING or anything like that.
Just a moment. But when Yaradua left the scene, Jonathan came in, there was no wahala, as they say in Nigeria. But the moment Goodluck also realized that he had been defeated and he handed over quietly, there was no wahala. But today we are talking of a transition where some people feel, look, I must be there. Three big parties. It's like Kwankwaso has mellowed down. He's not talking so much about this presidency. But the other two, PDP, Labour Party, they feel that they've been shortchanged, and that is why their followers are also feeling same. And of course, the government is feeling, look, they've already gained this mandate. It's theirs. They have to protect it. And that's why you see all of this. And some people saying, let there be interim government. Interim government is a novelty. It is strange to the Nigerian constitution. There is no war where Nigeria, the entire country, or almost only 3 states are left not fighting a war. If we have that situation, and even at that, when there's a government in power, I think it does not require an interim government. It does not at all.
Well, the sooner this resolves itself, the better for it, so that we can actually focus on governance. Let's move slightly away from that. I've seen, we've talked about this a couple of times on this show, and we're still talking about it again. In the run-up to the elections, maybe it's because of more attention being paid to politics or underreporting or something like that. The cases of insecurity seem to have died down a little bit, maybe because of the cash crunch or something. We really can't ascribe anything to that. But when it finished, after all the politicking and all the elections and everything like that, we're seeing an uptick in cases of insurgency, kidnaps here and there, bandits attacking people. And we're just reading right now on the front page of the Daily Trust that kidnappers abduct 8 students in Kaduna, and I know that's something that's very close to your heart. And why are we seeing this resurgence in these cases of insecurity? Could it have anything to do with the post-election, or the way the polity is actually, the state of the polity as it is?
I think that this kidnapping, these recent cases we are seeing, they have nothing to do with post-election violence. But it has, in my own candid opinion, some policies. When Nigeria started this cashless policy, any kidnapper who would kidnap any person would just waste his time, because that person, even if they have the money in the bank, they cannot have it. And at the point they say you can only have 20,000, which you will never get. So why do you waste your time? So you see that cases of kidnapping went down. They had nothing to do with election or post-election violence. If you check to Ibrahim, where were you hearing of armed robbery cases? That armed robbers will now waylay people on the roads and dispossess them of money. They knew it was a waste of time. They were never in the highways. Where did you hear of armed robbers knocking in houses? Your money or your life? Surrender. You just waste your time. There's no money. All of this had nothing to do with post-election violence. But I trace it to the fact that, you see, people felt that, this thing called human rights, fundamental human rights. I have my money in my bank. Why would MFLA, why would the CBN, why would Buhari begin to say we have to regulate it this way? And therefore, let us, in fact, people went to court, up to Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled, no, it's wrong, CBN, do this, do that. Okay, now that has been relaxed. Even kidnappers, by the time they kidnap, they are even giving conditions.
Well, Mr. Sherman,
don't bring old notes. Bring new notes.
Mr. Sherman,
you can imagine.
Mr. Sherman, for that policy, though, wasn't that a temporary measure? I mean, if you put it side by side, the kind of sufferings Nigerians suffered and the impact of that on the economy. If we want to tackle kidnapping, aren't there other ways? Because telling people that they cannot have access to their money just so that you check kidnapping, is that sustainable in the long run, though?
See, honestly, it is sustainable. My only issue is, like we've always said in this program, we love this bulk money carrying all over the place. When you see a government official, you see a businessman, you believe you should be dipping money and flinging to some people, and they go scampering for. But when you look at, I'm wondering if Dangote moves around with money. I'm wondering which Mike Adenuga moves around with money. I'm wondering.
That's a very little percentage.
Just a moment. I know it's a little percentage, but I tell you, Stella, the day you are going to any European country, leave this Nigeria with 500 euro notes. You go there, you never spend them. Nobody will receive them. They'll say, go put it in your bank and do transfers.
But do we have the infrastructure to do that? Because we've seen how these things have failed people.
I agree with you. It's the implementation that is wrong. I tell you, it's the implementation that is wrong. If we said, okay, the network is working, and now somebody transfers, and at the other end, they receive. Who says? Truly, Ibrahim, work out after this, try these nail cutters. Come, how do I pay you? Say, no. Some are opening accounts. I'm telling you this. So the thing is that it's not easy accepting, imbibing, and holding change. Change must be, and it has to be. If in Nigeria or Africa, rather, we are taking the lead, why not? But if there are things wrong with the implementation, let's begin to look at that. Because it can't just be that we have to be carrying bulky money here and there. And look at the cost of even printing money. In Europe, monies are in the banks, and what do? What moves are just very smaller denominations, and that helps to check inflation. You want to buy bitter cola, the man tells you, okay, it's now 20 naira. And if it's a thing that you say it's 3 naira, he doesn't have change. And we believe in this round figure thing. It's either 10 naira, 20 naira, 50 naira. You are not talking of 13 naira. Our budgets are always also round figure. In Europe, you just have point so cent and all sorts of small to the last digit. But with us, it has to be 2 billion, 3 billion. And there are no fractions. So we are forgetting fractions, and we know that by the time we have 5 naira note, 10 naira note, 20 naira note, 50 naira note, 1 naira, these ones, they are mostly in circulation. You see that, honestly, it's the beginning of another way of checking inflation. In developed countries, these small denominations are the ones circulating. If you have to buy something that will reach maybe 200, 300, 500 pounds, I mean, it's by transfer. You don't carry cash at all.
All right,
and
Mr.
that's
Chairman.
why their money is always looking very neat. Let someone send money from you or to you from abroad. You go to collect. They are giving you dollars. They are giving you euros or pounds. See, in the bank here in Nigeria, they will look for one clean envelope and put it, arrange it for you, seal it, you count, they count it again, and they give you. Why are we not treating the naira
right,
that
Mr.
way?
Sherman.
Something that will spread on the ground and dance on top. It is not done in
All right, Mr.
developed
Sherman,
country.
there's still the story on the Daily Trust newspaper. It says, Obi Oyedepo's leaked audio. We don't track phone conversations. This is coming from the NCC. And the reason I raised it is this. Over the weekend and up till now, the issue of the audio has been all over the place. People are talking about it. But people are talking about the substance of that conversation. But not a lot of people are talking about the fact that a private conversation was leaked. And now the NCC is saying that they are not the ones behind it. What does that say? Because it was supposed to be a private conversation, as it were, but it was leaked. It could happen to many other people.
Exactly. You see, when the Queen was talking to a former British Prime Minister, and when they called Nigeria, deliberately they allowed the port. They said, "Oh, Nigeria, that country is fantastically corrupt, fantastically corrupt." I mean, if you were whispering, why was the voice so sonorous? In the same vein, if you had a private discussion, who recorded it? Either the labor man's phone or the religious man's phone. Somebody put the recording button on for them, and some of those people must have done the extraction and subsequent transmission to the public.
But
That just a moment,
Okay.
and it would be wrong for some people to say, in my own opinion, that NCC probably did it. But if they want to go back to actually the first phone that did that, they will always get it. They will always get it. Just that, if you check Buhari, it's almost signing this personal data bill into an act. It protects things like this, protects if I'm sick and Stella is insisting, doctor must give her, look, she's a journalist armed with the Freedom of Information Act. I want to know exactly what is wrong with this man. You see, at that point, this law will not allow the doctor to give that. But if it is public policy, issues of corruption, running the government is different. This law is at the point it gives you some rights, at the point it takes them away from you. In other words, there is no law that doesn't have but. I give you the right to fling your hands in this studio. But do I have the right to fling these studios to the extent that I break your eyeglass, injure you? Fling your eyeglass, remove one of your tooth, your teeth. It doesn't include that. So when this Data Protection Act has come to stay, there are some protections that will be there. If, for example, the military is planning operations, they are moving to so, you can't say, come, Chief of Defense Staff, Chief of Army Staff, can I have your plan, your game, your way, the plan you have to carry the opponent. The law will not allow you to have that. If we are designing a car now, we want to design a car, Nigeria make, look at it. You now say, look, Ibrahim is a journalist, I work with Daily Trust. You have to give me all the details, how you're designing this, and because the public will have a right to know. See, the law will just say, come. By doing that, you are giving what our own intellectual property to someone to just quickly copy. And that's why we talk about piracy. We need to protect our own intellectual property. And that's why this leaked phone conversation, truly, either that, look, when you see people in church or mosque, it's not everything that religious or cleric is saying, that even the followers, it's not everybody that will believe in it. Some, look, you could be an ardent member of so party, but there are some things you admire in the other party. It happens. And so, by the time somebody feels, our guys did this, no, they shouldn't be talking like this now, I'll expose them. After all, there are also instances where you could have some disgruntled elements. Recall last week, a retired colonel was caught among kidnappers, was caught among, some others were caught with hems. What is happening? Some of them, look, it depends on how they left. Were they dismissed? Or he retired? Or was he retired? And when some people leave the scene without getting set, either by way of, look, you can be satisfied psychologically that you are living.
All right, well, Mr. Chairman,
but you might not also have material acquisition, and that can bring some conflict.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for those insights. We wish I had more time to actually explore this issue of privacy and data protection and the rest of it, but we'll probably pick it up somewhere along the line. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and of course, we appreciate the analysis and all those insights.
Always a great pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so that's the newspaper review right here on Trust TV's Daybreak. We'll take a short break, and when we return, top of the hour, we will continue with the program. Do stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that